"You promised not to tell," she screamed. The rancher looked at the sheriff. "And do the unthinkable." The twin suns of Red Mesa beat down on the dusty plains, turning the sand into a sea of red and gold. The horizon stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged cliffs and the occasional rock formation. In this harsh, lonely frontier, life was measured by survival and the loyalty of one's neighbors. For Elias Kane, a rugged rancher with a weathered face and eyes like storm clouds, life had been predictable for years. His days began before dawn, tending to his herd of genetically enhanced livestock, creatures bred to survive the scorching heat and harsh winds of this distant world. Elias's ranch was small by interstellar standards, but it was home. He knew every inch of the land, every shadow cast by the mesas, and every sound the desert made at night. The only company he allowed himself were his animals, the occasional traveler, and the memories of a family long gone. He was a man of routine, the kind who found comfort in the steady rhythm of life under the twin suns. That rhythm shattered one evening as Elias was checking the perimeter fences. The wind carried a strange, urgent sound, a metallic hum, almost like the vibrations of distant machinery. At first he thought it was a hover bike, perhaps one of the few traders who still dared to pass through Red Mesa, but the sound grew closer, faster, and soon a shadow darted across the sand, moving with a desperate speed that no ordinary traveler could achieve. Clara Rain burst into the barn without warning, her clothes torn and dust clinging to her hair. Her eyes were wide, wild with fear, and in her hands she clutched a small glowing device that pulsed with a strange inner light. "You promised not to tell!" she screamed, her voice breaking as she threw herself toward Elias. Elias froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the blaster at his hip. The device Clara held emitted a faint hum, almost like it was alive. He recognized the symbol etched into its surface immediately. It was a government tracking beacon, a small but powerful tool designed to control colonies deemed rebellious or untrustworthy by the interstellar authorities. Before he could ask more, a familiar voice called from the entrance. "Step away from her, Kane." Elias turned slowly. Sheriff Cole Vance stood in the doorway, his long coat catching the fading sunlight. Normally, Vance was a man of law, a steady hand in a chaotic world. But now his posture was strange, tense, and hesitant. His hand hovered near his blaster, but it was not in a threatening way. It was as if he were struggling with a decision that weighed heavily on him. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Cole, what's wrong with you? You look like a man deciding whether to betray someone he trusts." Vance's eyes flicked to Clara, then to the device she clutched. His jaw tightened. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "But she's holding something that could change everything out here. I don't know what to do." Clara's grip on the device tightened. "They're coming for me," she said, her voice trembling. "And if they take this, they'll control everyone. They'll find the rebels, the ones hiding, the ones fighting back." "You don't understand, Sheriff. They'll kill everyone." Elias took a step forward. "Slow down, Clara. Who's coming? And why this? This thing?" Before Clara could answer, a low, mechanical hum filled the air. Elias's heart sank as he realized the sound wasn't distant. It was right above them. Hover drones descended from the sky, their metallic bodies reflecting the red light of the setting suns. They were armed, scanning the desert with harsh, sweeping beams of light. "They're already here," Clara whispered. Elias moved instinctively, herding his livestock behind the barn as cover. The drones were too high-tech for any ordinary guns he possessed, but he remembered the old explosives he had stored in a hidden shed. He had never used them. They were meant for emergencies, the kind of emergencies no one dared think about in Red Mesa. Sheriff Vance joined him at the barn, his face grim. "We need a plan. If they take her, they'll take you too. And that device, it's bigger than anything we've faced before." Elias's mind raced. Red Mesa had always been a place of simplicity and survival, but now it had become a battlefield. And the people he trusted most, Clara, the sheriff, were caught in the crossfire of something much larger than themselves. "Listen," Elias said, his voice steadying despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "We need to move. The cliffs to the west, they're jagged, sure, but they'll give us cover. We can hide until we figure out what that thing really is, and we need to keep it away from them, no matter what." Clara nodded, relief and fear mingling in her eyes. "But they're fast, Elias. Faster than anything we've seen. If we don't move now, it's over." With that, the three of them, Elias, Clara, and the reluctant sheriff, mounted their hover horses, and bolted into the red desert. The drones followed, their engines thrumming like a swarm of angry insects. Sand flew in all directions, blurring the horizon as the sun dipped below the cliffs, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. As they rode, Elias couldn't help but glance at the sheriff. Vance was skilled, precise, and brave, but Elias saw hesitation in his eyes. He realized the sheriff had a secret, something he had not revealed. And in a world where survival depended on trust, secrets were dangerous. Hours passed, the landscape shifting from jagged cliffs to deep canyons. They found temporary refuge in an abandoned mining settlement, its buildings worn and hollowed by time. Here, the red sand had seeped into every crevice, and the wind whistled through broken windows like a ghostly choir. Elias dismounted first, scanning the area. "We're safe, for now," he said, though he knew it was only temporary. "We need to, understand what we're dealing with." "Clara, that device, what exactly does it do?" Clara hesitated, glancing at the sheriff before answering. "It's a tracking beacon, yes, but not just for location. It can communicate with satellites, access security systems, and even unlock defenses remotely. Whoever has it can control whole colonies. And if the wrong people get it, well, let's just say Red Mesa won't be the only place at risk." Elias frowned, processing the weight of her words. The quiet life he had known, riding through the desert, caring for his herd, keeping to himself, was gone. In its place was something much larger, something dangerous, and something that required choices he had never imagined making. Sheriff Vance stepped forward, his usual confidence replaced with something heavier. "I swore an oath to uphold the law," he said quietly. "But I can't, not this time. Not when the law itself is being used to destroy innocent people. We need to protect that device, no matter what." Dementes, understanding that the sheriff's hesitation was not weakness, it was conscience. And in the chaos that had descended on Red Mesa, conscience could be more valuable than courage or skill. Night fell fully, and the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting pale light across the abandoned settlement. The wind carried whispers through the broken buildings, and the distant hum of drones reminded them that danger was never far behind. Clara sat quietly, the device resting in her lap, its glow casting eerie shadows on her face. Elias and Vance stood guard, their senses alert, every nerve on edge. The silence of Red Mesa was deceptive. Beneath it, threats lingered, unseen, relentless, and patient. As they huddled in the shadows, Elias realized something important. Trust had become their greatest weapon. He didn't fully trust the sheriff yet, and he didn't fully trust Clara, though he knew her fear was real. But together they had a chance, maybe even a small one, to survive the coming storm. Above them, the stars shone brightly, indifferent to the struggles of a few humans on a tiny desert planet. But Elias Kane, rugged rancher of Red Mesa, knew that under those stars the choices they made tonight would echo far beyond the red sand. Lives would be changed, alliances tested, and the frontier would never be the same again. And somewhere in the distance, hidden among the jagged cliffs and the endless plains, something waited. A presence as silent as the desert itself, yet as dangerous as the twin suns overhead. Elias couldn't see it. He couldn't hear it. But he felt it, a sense that this was only the beginning and the real challenge had yet to arrive. The night on Red Mesa was colder than Elias had expected. The twin moons shone pale and distant, their light glinting off the edges of jagged cliffs and reflecting in the dunes like distant stars scattered on the desert floor. The abandoned mining settlement offered shelter, but it was hollow, silent, and eerie. Every step echoed, and every shadow seemed to move on its own. Elias, Clara, and Sheriff Vance had settled near the largest building, an old warehouse that smelled of rusted metal and sand. The glow from the device Clara carried pulsed softly, casting light that made the shadows dance like restless spirits. "We can't stay here," Elias said, scanning the perimeter through the broken windows. "They'll find us eventually. Those drones don't give up, and if they do, reinforcements will come. We need a plan." Clara nodded, her fingers tightening around the device. "They're not just looking for me. They're looking for the device. Whoever controls it can track us anywhere. Even now, they might be close." Vance, usually calm and composed, ran a hand over his face. "I've been in this position before, Kane. Outlaws, thieves, people running from the law. But this is different. Whoever wants that device doesn't care about law or order. They care about power." Elias studied the sheriff, sensing the hesitation still lingering in his stance. Vance was a man who followed rules, yet here he was helping fugitives against the very law he had sworn to enforce. Elias realized trust would have to be earned tonight, with actions, not words. "First thing," Elias said, "we need to make sure they can't track us right now. Clara, can you disable it temporarily?" "I can, but if I do, it might send a signal alerting them. It's risky." Vance spoke up, voice firm. "It's a risk we have to take. If they track us while we hide, we won't last an hour." Clara nodded slowly and worked carefully with the device. Her hands moved with precise, confident motions, but her face betrayed the fear twisting inside her. After a few tense minutes, the hum of the beacon dimmed. For now they were invisible to those hunting them. Elias exhaled slowly, relief washing over him for just a moment. Good. Now we plan our next move. The plan was simple in theory. Move at dawn to a series of jagged canyons that Elias knew well. The cliffs offered cover, hiding them from drones and patrols. From there, they could decide if they would head toward the rumored rebel colonies or try to find allies among other ranchers. But simple plans rarely survive the harsh reality of Red Mesa. As the hours passed, the three of them waited in tense silence. The wind whispered through the broken buildings, carrying with it the distant hum of machinery. It was subtle at first, almost easy to ignore, but then it grew louder. "They found us," Clara whispered, panic rising in her voice. Elias didn't reply. Instead, he motioned for silence. All three pressed themselves against the walls of the warehouse, peering through broken windows. A pair of drones hovered on the horizon, scanning, searching. Their lights swept the desert like the gaze of a predator. Vance crouched low. "We can't outrun them on flat ground, but there are old mining tunnels nearby. If we can reach them, we can disappear for a while." Clara looked doubtful. "Those tunnels, people say they're unstable. They could collapse. It's better than standing out in the open. Trust me, I know these lands." With the drones closing in, they moved quickly, slipping from building to building using shadows as cover. Their hover horses moved silently over sand and broken stone, machines built for speed and stealth. The canyons loomed ahead, tall and jagged, promising safety but also danger. As they entered the narrow canyon paths, the drones followed, their lights bouncing along the walls, but unable to penetrate the twisting paths Elias knew so well. The canyon became a maze, each turn and shadow a potential trap for the drones. "This should slow them down," Elias said, his voice low but steady, but then Vance stopped abruptly, raising a hand. His eyes were wide, scanning the cliffs above. "They're not just drones," he said. "Someone's on foot moving along the ridge. And they're fast." Elias's heart sank. The frontier was harsh, but people could be even harsher. Someone trained, someone determined, had tracked them this far. That meant their enemies weren't just machines. They were cunning and relentless. Clara gripped the device tighter. "We need a plan for that, too." The terrain was rough, but it gave them an advantage. "We can use the narrow paths to our advantage. If they follow, we can force them into a bottleneck. One wrong step, and they'll have no choice but to retreat." Hours passed with tense silence as they navigated the canyon. Occasionally, the sound of shifting rocks or a distant hum reminded them that they were not alone. Each shadow seemed alive, and every gust of wind carried the threat of discovery. By the time the twin suns began to rise, casting long red shadows over the canyon walls, Elias, Clara, and Vance had found a small alcove to rest. It was hidden, shielded by rock formations, and offered a view of the canyon entrance. "We've bought ourselves time," Elias said quietly, though his voice carried fatigue. "But it won't last. They'll regroup." Clara looked exhausted, yet her determination burned bright. "I can't let them get it," she said, lifting the device. "If they control it, they control everything. Red Mesa, the colonies." Vance studied her, a shadow of doubt passing over his face. "And if we're caught trying to protect it, we're finished. You realize that, right?" Clara's eyes met his, fierce and unwavering. "I'd rather die trying than let them win." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll do more than try. We'll survive. But we need to work together. No secrets, no hesitation. Trust is everything now." Vance nodded slowly, his usual stern expression softening. You're right. We survived together. But I have to warn you, there may be choices coming that we won't like. Choices that test us more than we've ever been tested before. I'm ready for that. Whatever comes, we face it together. Clara, you, me, and even you, Cole. The sheriff gave a faint, almost reluctant smile. "Don't call me Cole right now. I'm still a man of law, barely." The morning passed in tense preparation. Elias used the time to scout ahead, checking the canyon paths and marking traps that could slow their pursuers. Clara studied the device, learning its controls and limits, while Vance kept watch, his eyes never leaving the canyon entrances. By mid-afternoon, the tension reached its peak. Movement in the distance caught their attention. More drones, faster, more organized than before. And following them, a shadowed figure moved with purpose, scanning every turn, every hiding spot. "They've found a way around the canyon," Elias said grimly. "We're going to have to fight smart. No rushing. No mistakes. We don't have a choice. We can't run forever. We have to hold them off and survive long enough to find the rebels. That's the only way this ends well." Vance stepped forward, his hand resting on his blaster. "Then we do what needs to be done. But remember, Red Mesa is unforgiving. One mistake and it'll be the end for all of us." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders. He glanced at Clara and Vance, two allies whose loyalty and courage would define their survival. In this desert of red sand and jagged cliffs, trust and skill were all they had. The first attack came as the suns dipped low in the sky, shadows stretching across the canyon like long fingers. The drone swept in, lights cutting through the darkness, and the figure on the ridge took aim, silent and deadly. Elias, Clara, and Vance moved with practiced coordination, using every trick the canyon offered: rocks, shadows, and narrow paths. Blasters fired, sparks and energy bolts flashing against the canyon walls. The sound of engines, the crackle of weapons, and the hiss of energy fields filled the air, echoing through the cliffs. It was chaos, but Elias knew the terrain, Clara knew the device, and Vance knew survival. Together, they fought, not just for themselves, but for a future beyond Red Mesa, a chance to protect what was good and just in a universe that often had none. By the time the night fully settled, the immediate danger had passed. The drones were destroyed or forced to retreat, and the shadowy figure had vanished into the cliffs. Elias, Clara, and Vance collapsed in exhaustion, hearts pounding, breaths heavy. "We survived, for now," Elias said, his voice hoarse. "But this is only the beginning. They'll come again, and next time they'll be stronger, faster, more prepared." Clara nodded, eyes wide but determined. "Then we'll be ready. We have to be." Vance looked at them, his face serious. "Red Mesa has never seen anything like this, and neither have I. But I know one thing. Together, we have a chance. Just a chance, but a chance nonetheless." The three of them settled into the shadows, the glowing device pulsing softly between them. The canyon was quiet now, but the desert had a long memory, and they all knew that danger would return, relentless and unforgiving. But for now, they had survived, and survival, in Red Mesa, was victory enough. The days on Red Mesa were always harsh, but after the first attack, the desert seemed even more dangerous. The twin suns beat down on jagged cliffs and red sand that stretched endlessly, and the wind carried whispers of danger through the canyons. Elias, Clara, and Sheriff Vance moved carefully, knowing that their enemies were relentless and cunning. The trio had made camp in a narrow canyon, hidden behind jagged rocks. The glowing device Clara carried was now fully functional, but they had learned to be cautious. The faint hum it emitted could attract attention, and the last attack had reminded them that whoever wanted it would not give up. Elias scanned the horizon, his eyes sharp and calculating. "We need to move again," he said quietly. "They'll be back, and next time they'll know where to look. The canyon gave us cover, but it won't protect us forever." "I know, but where do we go?" "The desert is endless, and there's no one we can fully trust." Vance spoke, his voice low and steady. "There's a ridge to the north. It overlooks a valley with abandoned settlements. If we can reach it, we might find supplies or even allies, but it's risky. The path is exposed, and they'll be watching." Elias studied the ridge. It was high, jagged, and treacherous, but he knew the terrain well. "We have no choice," he said. "If we wait here, we're trapped. We move at first light, quiet, careful, and fast." That night they rested in tense silence. The wind moaned through the canyon, and the glowing device pulsed softly, casting long shadows across the rock walls. Clara studied it carefully, her fingers tracing the intricate lines etched into its surface. "It's more powerful than I realized," she whispered. "It can access systems, track positions, even communicate over long distances. Whoever controls it can dominate entire colonies." Vance frowned. looking at her with a mixture of worry and respect. "Then it's no wonder they're after you, but it's dangerous to use it. One wrong signal, and they'll find us instantly." Elias placed a reassuring hand on Clara's shoulder. "We'll manage, but we need to trust each other completely. No secrets, no hesitation. That's the only way we survive out here." The next morning, they began their journey toward the northern ridge. The terrain was unforgiving, steep cliffs on one side and deep drop-offs on the other. The hover horses moved carefully, but even they struggled with the rocky paths. Every sound echoed, and every shadow could hide danger. As they climbed, Elias kept a sharp eye on the horizon. "We're not alone," he muttered, noticing movement in the distance. Figures moved along the cliffs, scanning, searching. They were fast, precise, and silent. Clara's face turned pale. "They found us again," she whispered. Vance's jaw tightened. "We knew this would happen. Be ready for anything." The first attack came suddenly. Figures appeared on the cliffs above, armed with energy rifles. The trio ducked instinctively as bolts of light streaked past, hitting the rocks and sand around them. The hover horses neighed and shifted nervously, sensing the danger. Elias fired back, using the rocks for cover. Clara clutched the device, unsure whether to use it to defend them or risk giving away their position. Vance took aim, precise and calm, returning fire to keep the attackers at bay. The canyon became a battlefield, the sound of energy bolts echoing against the cliffs. Dust and sand kicked up, blurring the horizon. The attackers were relentless, but Elias knew the terrain. He led the group through twists and turns, using narrow paths to force their enemies into a bottleneck. Then the unthinkable happened. One of the attackers fired a shot that struck a rock formation near them. The impact caused a cascade of stones to tumble down the cliffside, threatening to bury them. Vance shouted, "Move!" Now Elias pushed Clara onto safer ground, and they all sprinted, barely avoiding the falling rocks. The attackers were momentarily delayed, giving the trio a chance to escape deeper into the canyon. But they knew it was only temporary. "We can't keep running like this," Elias said, breathing heavily. "They'll keep coming, faster and stronger. We need to fight smart, not just survive." Clara looked at him, determination in her eyes. "Then we fight smart. We use the canyon, the rocks, the paths they don't know. We make it their trap." Vance nodded, his usual stern expression now hardened with resolve. "We need a plan that works, no mistakes. One wrong move and it's over." Elias studied the terrain. An idea formed. "There's a narrow ridge up ahead. If we can get them there, they won't have room to maneuver. We can force them into a bottleneck and take them out one by one. It's risky. If they spot us first, we're done."
"We move at nightfall," Elias said firmly. "We use the shadows in the terrain to our advantage."
"Trust me, we can do this." The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the desert. The group prepared for the move, their nerves tight as they approached the narrow ridge. The hover horses moved silently, and the trio stayed low, using rocks and shadows to hide. As they reached the ridge, the attackers appeared again, more organized this time. Drones hovered above, scanning for heat signatures, while the figures on foot moved with precision. Elias led the group along a hidden path, forcing the attackers into the narrow part of the ridge. Rocks jutted out, creating natural barriers. The attackers had no room to advance, and their drones struggled to navigate the tight space. "Now," Elias whispered. Vance fired first, precise shots taking out the closest attackers. Clara used the device carefully, sending a pulse that disabled one of the drones temporarily. The attackers were caught off guard, unable to maneuver in the tight space. Elias moved quickly, using the terrain to his advantage, taking down the remaining attackers with calculated precision. The ridge echoed with the sounds of combat, but slowly the attackers were defeated or forced to retreat. Breathing heavily, the trio regrouped. "We did it," Clara said, relief washing over her. "But this is far from over. They'll be back, and next time they'll be smarter." Vance nodded, his face serious. "This proves one thing. We can fight them, yes, but we can't underestimate them. They'll adapt, and we need to be ready." Elias looked at the glowing device in Clara's hands. "This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about protecting something bigger than us. If we fail, it's not just Red Mesa at risk. It's the colonies, the people who are counting on us." Clara's grip tightened around the device. "I understand. And I won't let it fall into the wrong hands. We'll fight together, no matter what." Vance placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "You've earned my trust, Kane. And Clara, you've proven you're braver than most people I've known. We survived together, or not at all. The night settled over the canyon, quiet now except for the soft wind. The glow of the device pulsed gently, a reminder of the danger that still lurked. Elias, Clara, and Vance sat close together, exhausted but determined. They knew that more challenges awaited, more battles, and more tests of their courage and loyalty. Somewhere in the distance, the enemy was regrouping, planning their next move. But Elias Kane, rugged rancher of Red Mesa, had a plan. And with Clara's courage and Vance's skill, they were ready to face whatever came next. The twin moons rose higher, casting light across the canyon. Shadows danced, but this time Elias felt a spark of hope. They had survived the unthinkable so far, and if they could survive the ridge, maybe they could survive anything. As they prepared to rest, Elias made a silent promise to himself. They would protect the device, protect the people counting on them, and face the dangers of Red Mesa with courage, skill, and trust. The unthinkable had been faced, and they had survived, but the real test was still ahead. And Red Mesa, with its endless red sands and jagged cliffs, would demand everything they had, and more. The morning sun rose over Red Mesa, casting long shadows across the jagged cliffs and red sands. The twin moons had disappeared behind the horizon, leaving the desert glowing in soft golden light. Elias, Clara, and Sheriff Vance had spent the night in a narrow canyon, tending to minor injuries and planning their next move. The events of the past days weighed heavily on them. The attack on the ridge had tested their courage and skills, but Elias knew the true challenge was still ahead. The device Clara carried pulsed faintly, reminding them that whoever controlled it held the power to track and dominate entire colonies. They could not let it fall into the wrong hands. Elias studied the horizon. "We need to move toward the northern valley," he said. "There's an abandoned settlement there. It may have supplies, maybe even shelter, but we need to be careful." "They'll be looking for us." "We can't stop now. Too many people are counting on us. If we fail, it's not just Red Mesa that's at risk. It's everyone out there fighting for freedom." Vance mounted his hover horse, his face stern. "Then we move quickly and quietly. No mistakes. The valley is our best chance to rest and regroup before the next attack." The journey to the valley was long and treacherous. The desert stretched endlessly, with sharp cliffs and sudden drops that could swallow a person in seconds. The trio moved cautiously, keeping their hover horses low and quiet. Every movement was calculated, every shadow checked for signs of pursuit. By midday, they reached the edge of the northern valley. The land opened up into a wide expanse, dotted with abandoned buildings and overgrown ruins. It was a perfect place to hide, but also a potential trap. Elias dismounted, scanning the area carefully. "Looks quiet," he said, though he didn't fully believe it. "Stay alert. They could be anywhere." Clara held the device tightly, her eyes scanning the ruins. "If we can find an old communication hub, I might be able to reach the rebels. We need their help." "It won't be easy. The hub may be damaged, and if they find us while we're there, we're trapped." Elias led the group through the ruins, using the broken walls and collapsed buildings as cover. The sun beat down mercilessly, but they moved quickly, determined to reach their goal. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the valley and the possibility of help. After hours of careful movement, they reached the remains of a communications center. The building was partially collapsed, wires hanging from the ceiling, and old consoles covered in dust. Clara moved to the main console, her hands working quickly to access its systems. "I can do it," she said, voice focused, "but it's going to take time. I need to bypass the security protocols and link the device to their network. If I fail, they'll know exactly where we are." Elias and Vance kept watch, scanning the valley for any sign of movement. The silence was tense, broken only by the faint hum of the device and the occasional whistle of the wind. Hours passed, and Clara finally managed to connect the device to the old communication system. A holographic map appeared, showing a hidden colony far beyond Red Mesa. These were the people fighting against the oppressive interstellar regime, the ones Clara had mentioned earlier. "They're real," Elias whispered, awe in his voice. "And they're out there, waiting for us." "Now they know we're coming. They can prepare. We just have to survive the journey to them." Vance studied the map, his expression serious. "It won't be easy. They're far away, and our enemies will be watching. But at least now we have a direction, a goal. We know where we're going." As they prepared to leave the valley, movement caught their attention. Figures emerged from the dunes, armed and organized. Their enemies had tracked them using both drones and scouts. The final confrontation was coming. Elias signaled to Clara and Vance.
We knew this would happen. Stay calm. Stay together.
We fight smart, or we don't survive. The attackers advanced, and the valley erupted into chaos. Blaster fire lit the ruins, echoes bouncing off the broken walls. Elias moved with precision, using the terrain to his advantage, while Vance provided cover from higher ground. Clara used the device to disrupt drones and confuse their enemies, turning their own technology against them. Despite the overwhelming numbers, the trio worked together seamlessly. Every move was calculated, every action coordinated. They had faced impossible odds before, and now, experience and trust guided their every step. At a critical moment, the enemy attempted to flank them, moving through a narrow passage. Elias knew this was their chance. He shouted to Vance, "Now!" Vance fired a precise shot at a support beam, causing a small collapse that blocked the passage. The attackers were trapped, giving the trio a moment to regroup. Clara sent a pulse through the device, temporarily disabling the remaining drones and creating confusion among their enemies. Elias, Clara, and Vance pressed forward, pushing through the chaos. The attackers were skilled, but they were not as coordinated as the trio. Slowly, the tide of the battle turned. One by one, the enemies were forced to retreat, their formations broken, their technology compromised. Finally, the valley fell silent. The dust settled, and the trio looked around, exhausted but victorious. The attackers had been driven back, their forces scattered. For now, Red Mesa was safe. Clara exhaled, relief washing over her. We did it, we survived. And the rebels know we're coming. Vance nodded, his face weary but resolute. This isn't the end. They'll regroup. But we've bought ourselves time, and that's all we needed. Elias looked at the glowing device, its light pulsing gently in Clara's hands. We've protected it so far. Now we take the next step. We reach the colony, and we make sure the device stays out of the wrong hands. The journey ahead was long, but hope burned bright. The trio mounted their hover horses, moving carefully toward the distant horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, but they had a purpose now, a direction, and a plan. As the sun began to set, casting the red sands in golden and orange hues, Elias felt a sense of calm. The battle had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and forced them to make impossible choices. But they had survived, and together they were stronger than ever. Clara glanced at the device, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination. "We can do this," she said softly. "We can reach them, and we can help the colonies. We have to." Vance looked at them both, a rare smile crossing his face. "I've faced a lot of dangers in my life, but this is different. But I believe in us. We survived together, and that's what counts." The horizon glowed with the last light of the day, and beyond it lay the unknown. The rebels, the colonies, and the future of Red Mesa depended on them. Elias, Clara, and Vance rode forward, united, determined, and ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The twin moons would rise again, casting their light over the desert, but this time, Elias knew they were not alone. Together they had survived the unthinkable, faced impossible odds, and protected something far greater than themselves. Red Mesa had tested them, but they had emerged stronger, and in the vast expanse of stars, sand, and danger, hope had been rekindled. The journey was far from over, but Elias Kane, Clara Rain, and Sheriff Cole Vance had proven one thing: courage, trust, and determination could triumph even in the harshest frontier. And as they disappeared into the endless red sands, the glow of the device pulsed softly, a reminder of the battles fought, the allies gained, and the future yet to be written. For now, the frontier was theirs to navigate, and Red Mesa had become a symbol of survival, courage, and hope in a universe that demanded both.